Welcome to the MyBusiness Podcast, where we sit down with local businesses and we talk about who they are, where they come from, and what inspires them to be in business.
Welcome to the MyBusiness Podcast. It's a podcast where we sit down with local businesses and talk about what they are, where they come from, and what inspires them to be in business. Welcome to the podcast today, Tim Pintilie.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here. Pleased to meet you.
Excellent, mate. Look, thank you for taking the time to come into the studios here today. It is wonderful to meet you. Tell us a bit about what's the name of your business and what do you do?
The name of the business is F Virtual Reality. So what I've been doing for the past 5 years, I've been running a 9D virtual reality simulator. So I've been running that all over different shopping centres in Southeast Queensland. Now I'm expanding to more events and that kind of thing.
Now explain 9D. I mean, I've heard of 3D. I've been to Movie World where they have 4D. Give us a 9D rundown.
Look, I get that question asked all the time. So you would have also heard of 7D. So if you go to like Aussie World, they have the 7D simulator, and 7D is like more the old school simulators where you've got a whole room and it's like maybe 10, 12 people in a room. The whole room moves or your seat moves and you got the screen.
Yep.
So the action's on the screen, synchronized with the motion. You're going to have like wind, maybe water, maybe some smells pumped into the room. And the reason they call it 7D, obviously you've got all the maybe 7 different effects potentially or something like that. It's also a cool name, right? It sounds cool, 7D, even though it doesn't necessarily have any bearing on reality. It's a cool name.
Yep.
It's a good marketing term. And so they call that 7D. The reason they call this 9D is because, sure, you get the special effects of wind, seat vibration, etc., but you also have a few extra layers, such as you have virtual reality headsets. Instead of looking at a screen, it's fully immersive. You can look around all 360 degrees. If you haven't tried VR before, those are the customers that have the coolest reactions because their mind is absolutely blown because they feel like they're in another world, another environment altogether. And so you have the VR aspect, which is a whole new technology that we've incorporated into pre-existing simulated technology. And you also have the interactive component, which you can actually interact if you choose a game potentially, especially with these newer simulators. The interactive games are quite good as well.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, though. How did Tim come to be the owner of F Virtual Reality, 9D, all that kind of stuff? How did you get to this place?
Yeah, look, I've always wanted to be in business. I've always read books and all that kind of thing. That's always been my thing. I think you have more flexibility, you can do more in life, etc. And I had people I looked up to that did well in business, and so that felt very natural and normal to me. So my sort of genesis story, when I finished school, I got straight into sales because I figured you need 2 things when you start in business. You need capital and you need experience.
Yep,
effectively, right? If you know how to sell, it's a big bonus. You don't have to know how to sell, but it's like, obviously it's the number one.
Well, it does put you one step ahead, doesn't it?
Puts you massively ahead. So I sold cars at a dealership in Gympie for 3.5 years.
Yep.
Yeah. So you learn a lot. It's a really good dealership where they really looked after their customers. A rural dealership, so you have to really look after people. So they come back and bring their kids in and their grandparents and their friends and tell everyone about you if you give them awesome experience. If people give you a bad rap, then you're not going to continue to sell cars in a small town where it's all about word of mouth.
Yep. The story passes around quickly, doesn't it?
100%. It's different than like a metro situation. You've got millions of people and it's like churn and burn. You can just go through people. Doesn't matter as much. In a rural town, it really matters. So that's what I loved about what we did specifically at Darren Gympie, at Pacific dealership, and they've got like 4 brands. So I specifically sold Isuzu, Honda, and Mitsubishi. Those were my 3 brands back in the day.
Yep. And that was that straight out of school?
I was 18.
18
selling cars.
Selling cars.
Yeah, right off the bat.
Now, to give you a bit of background, I used to be a bank manager.
Yeah, right.
So between a bank manager and a used car salesman,
that's it.
we're doing pretty well to be sitting here today, aren't we?
That's it, yeah.
So we do have hearts, don't we?
To some degree. We try.
We try. No, I'm sure you do that quite well. So you come out of school and you are selling cars.
Yeah.
And then is this the first business that you've owned?
Yeah, 100%. Yep. Oh, look, I've messed around with different things, but it's the first serious business that I've run for 5 years straight, and I've invested like massive capital into and done full time.
Yep. So I've looked at your website. Your website's fantastic. It's got all these 3D eggs or something they called it. What, egg pods? That's what they were.
Egg pods. Yeah.
So I'm looking at that now. How does somebody who's selling cars in Gympie think to themselves, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring in some egg pods to give a 9D reality job.
Yep.
And bring them to Australia.
Look, I'll go back to your previous point because you asked the question about heart, and I think I was joking around. Obviously, that is the cliche, isn't it?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you can make some short-term money by just like not really caring about your customer or whatever, just being there, just clocking in, clocking off if you're in a job or if you're in a business, being half-hearted about it. But if you really want to grow a business properly, you have to give it 100% and you have to really care about your end consumer and their experience, etc. So I think that was one thing that we did very well at this dealership. It was very different than normal dealerships. Like we actually cared about the customer and we really went the extra mile. And then I took that on board with the virtual reality business. So I'll go back to the question that you just asked me. Basically, I've always wanted to be in business and I've been there 3.5 years. I've saved some money. I feel like I grounded myself and I'm like, okay, what's it going to be? So before I sold cars, I did have like an eBay store. I was selling stuff on eBay. I was selling electronics on eBay, lasers and toys and that kind of thing. And so I had that background. I thought, oh, maybe I'll start some sort of e-commerce. I stumbled across the concept online.
Yep.
And then I saw the concept, I saw the machine, I saw what it could do, and I saw the videos of people screaming, and it just got my interest straight away. I was like, this has got to work. And I did a bit of research, and I found that no one had taken it to Australia, really. Not in the big, there's probably like one other person doing it, like far away. And I was like, this could be quite good because I could see it was quite big. If you go to Asia, if you go to like Dubai, you can see them like in a lot of places. You go to China and Guangzhou, they're everywhere. A lot of countries, even America, there's a whole bunch. So a lot of countries are like, I felt a step ahead to some degree. As like a lot of massive business concepts revolved around the idea of seeing something that works very well overseas and you bring it into your country. And that's what you did. That's what I looked to do. And then also I had experience in the dealership with the vehicle in a shopping center.
Okay.
Right. So when I first started, very early on, before I was like really selling cars properly, I was kind of like just very, very fresh, very green. They were like, oh yeah, we'll chuck him in the shopping center with a vehicle to kind of try to gather leads from customers and that kind of thing. And I was blown away, just a little shopping center in Gympie, how much interest came through to give their details, to learn more about the vehicle. So everyone walking past, it was just a method to generate leads for the dealership, but everyone walking past thought I was selling car tickets. Tickets to win the Honda HRV.
Yep.
So, and I did a bit of quick math afterwards. I was like, obviously I would never do this. But I was like, I could have made a few $100 every day just selling
tickets.
Just making up some tickets, selling them. If I wanted to, obviously I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
No, but then that came back to me when I saw that concept. I was like, if I could sell just raffle tickets that easily, because people were asking me for it when they didn't even exist. Imagine if you actually had a futuristic spaceship looking like machine in a shopping center. Imagine the attention you draw and how you could actually do quite well if people have never seen it before.
And people should check out your website because they'll see those futuristic spaceships there.
100%.
And obviously that's how you get a lot of interest out of that. Why do you do what you do? What's the motivation for you? What gets you up in the morning?
There's a lot of reasons. So at the beginning, I just thought it was a cool concept. I have to do this.
Yep. Even
if it doesn't work, I'll spend whatever it costs, 20, 30 grand at the beginning. Obviously, it's costing a lot more with the newer machines and that kind of thing. And I bought the first egg pod back then I bought another double egg pod, and now I'm buying this 360 spinning virtual reality machine. So at the beginning, it was just like really cool. I have to do this. Even if it doesn't work, it'd be worth a try, right? And then it's evolved from that where I see customers' reactions and how much fun they're having, and just the feedback that I get every single day when I go to, whether it's a shopping center or a show or wherever I might be, right, event, festival, whatever it might be. And just the customer reaction it's just exciting every single day to see that. And a lot of reasons, like obviously I was always big into technology. So I always followed basically when Oculus was bought by Facebook back in the day and what Facebook was doing, like even 5, 6, 7 years ago in VR, and they were like sort of trying to be pioneers, whatever. I kept an eye on things, and it's being part of a very exciting industry that most people don't even know exists.
So who is the end customer? Who are the people that get the biggest benefit out of your service?
Right, that's a good question. I didn't know this at all when I bought the machine. I was very much flying blind, right? So now I've very much figured out who it was. I thought my main customer would be like teenagers. Oh yeah, this looks really cool. Teenagers would be all over it. They're not. They're too cool to do it.
That was
the biggest shift in the business. I was kind of blown away by that. So I first set up in Runaway Bay, but I had no idea like anything about the area, Runaway Bay.
Yep.
And about a few days later, people were saying, yeah, this is kind of like a retirement village.
I wasn't going to say anything, but yes.
And I was like, what am I doing? And I wasn't even running it in school holidays. So I paid all this money because you usually pay rent, $2,000 rent per week.
To be at the shopping centre?
In a shopping centre. I got a bit of a discount. This was 5 years ago. Back then, things were cheaper, whatever. And so I'd paid all this money. I paid thousands of dollars to be there. And
you were getting nothing out of it.
I was getting nothing out of it because it wasn't school holidays. And people were saying, yeah, this is a bit more like older people, more of a retirement village. I'm like, this is not my right demographic. No. And so, yeah, I had to cut it short and come back to school holidays.
But it's a lesson learned, isn't it? And that's what it's all about.
100%. Yeah. So I messed up a lot along the way.
Yep. And who is the end customer now?
So you said it's not who it is. So I go minimum 3 years old. So 3 years old up until 13 is like these kids can't walk past it. They have to do it.
Yep.
So school holidays, all the parents are like, yeah, cool, like that. And parents see it. They're like, wow, that is really cool. Especially if I'm in a more rural area like Sunshine Plaza or Sunshine Coast, or now that I'm doing all these shows, this is all rural stuff that I'm doing with these country shows.
Yep.
So yeah, parents have to they're like, we don't really see this much. And it's once a year, we have to do it. So yeah, I give massive interest, like probably 70%, 80% of kids walking past either want to do it or actually stop and do it.
Now, what about us older people? Do they get involved?
Surprisingly,
as well?
yes. So there's a bit of a slow patch.
Yep.
After 13, but then I have a lot of older people, especially if they're like really old. If they're like 70, 80, they've got nothing to lose.
Yep.
They look at it. They're like, yeah, I might look stupid, but stuff it. I want to go to space. I want to go in a spaceship. I want to see what it's like to fly a dragon. So like stuff at that age, you don't care. You just want to enjoy your life.
Interestingly, I worked in Runaway Bay for quite a while.
Oh, righto. Shopping centre or somewhere else?
The shopping centre.
Oh, really?
So I know the clientele you're talking about there. And the branch that I was with had a lot of technology involved with it.
Right.
And I said to them at the time, I said, this is crazy.
Yeah.
It's all the old people.
It
you
is.
know who took it on the best? The old people. They all wanted to give it a go.
Yeah.
So,
I did have a lot of grandparents doing it.
Yeah.
And kids going with their grandparents. And when it comes to say 20, 30s and 40s, it's oftentimes the kids will do it. And
the parents will stand back.
Parents will stand back, but then also if they've only got one kid, they'll jump in with the kid.
Yeah,
so
cool.
they want to do it secretly, but the child is an excuse to do it. So now they can do it in a way that's culturally accepted.
That is awesome, isn't it? It's the way it should be too.
100%.
What is what's happening next, I guess, for you with the business? I mean, you talked about before that shopping centres, school holidays, but beforehand, before we turned the record button on, we were talking about the other times of the years and what you're looking at now.
Yeah, good question. So I mainly did shopping centres the first few years of the business. And then with COVID, it was actually a massive hit for the business. It was a really bad time for us because shopping centres were closing. I was running 2 locations at the time and you're paying a lot of money in rent. You're burning $300-400 a day, potentially employees. Like you got all this stuff going on with zero income coming in. So it was a bit difficult at the time. And so I kind of like stood back for a while. But then after COVID, I tried a country show. And then I found that that's a perfect clientele for myself because a lot of kids are there. Kids go there for the rides and I get the perfect demographic. A big mistake that I made in business was actually taking advice on board from clients and customers because they were like, yeah, these shows are these events are kind of like hit and miss. You might get rained on. Like they was talking about, like different people were saying about all the negative sides of it. Then I tried a few events and it turned out to be not like small events, not very big ones, like less than 3,000 people. And so all the stuff that I did wasn't that great. So I never really explored that avenue. But now this year I did that one and then I did the Childers, Bundaberg, Maryborough, Sunshine Coast show, all these different shows and every single Redcliffe, Bow Desert, like every single one was a hit. Gold Coast show. So they all did really well. So now I'm trying to get into the bigger ones like the Ecka's more difficult to get in.
Yep.
Sydney Royal show, etc. So
what about what's the best country show that you went to? Do you have one that stood out?
I only started middle of this year going to the shows, right? So that gives me a limited perspective because you have to do it over a 12-month period to know for sure. So Bundaberg was really good. But I haven't even done, like, say if you do the Cairns run where you do all the little shows all the way up to Cairns and then back. Apparently that stretch is really good, is what I've been told. So I'm very keen on next year.
Beautiful part of the world as well.
100%. Yeah, I go there all the time, yeah.
You do? Excellent. What are the bugbears in your industry? So COVID would have been a big hurdle for you. But what are the things that you need the most help with, I guess, in your business?
There's a couple of things as far as bugbears are concerned. There's always the potential problem of something like this happening again.
Yep.
Because I wasn't doing that great for 2 years. Like
it would have been tough.
It was quite rough, and I'm considering like, dude, if this goes on for like a very long time, I need to do something else. Like that's how bad it gets. So, and now I've invested much more heavily. So like now I'm like all in.
Yep.
So if something like that happens again, that would be really rough. So that's one thing that I keep in mind. Then there's other problems as well. There's regulation. There's a lot of things like insurances. A lot of things that you have to keep in mind. There's potential people coming in saturating the industry. There's a lot of things, but that's true for any business, isn't it?
That's exactly right. You've obviously seen a lot of people come through and use your product and service.
Yeah.
I was told that a guy from the Shark Tank, Steve Baxter, might have used your service at one stage.
He did. This is a classic example. This is very early days. This is a classic example of a lost leader. Yep. Because so what happened, right? This was some initiative put on, I think it was in Beenleigh, somewhere along the way.
Yep.
And I lived in Gympie at the time, so I drove all the way out to Beenleigh. I was like, fine, I'll do it for free. So some sort of event where I did the whole thing for free, just let people
experience.
Basically, it was some sort of entrepreneurship Kickstarter sort of event.
Yep.
And people were there, big personalities like Steve Baxter was there, different people. And when I heard that, I'd seen the shows and stuff. I was like, oh, I have to do it. I might get to meet him stuff. So yeah, I met him. He had a go. Yeah, it was really cool. There's videos on my Instagram of him like putting the headset on, having a go. He freaked out. He only did it for maybe 20 seconds. It was too much. He took it off. Not everyone can handle it. And I went all out. Went with the craziest ride. Yep. And yeah, like after 20 seconds, it's like, oh, too much, too much for me.
He didn't want to invest.
You
should have hit him up to invest and do your own little Shark Tank there on the spot.
Yeah, that's it. Should have done that. Yeah,
that would have been fantastic.
I've always been self-funded, so I think every business should. The best way to run a business is to make money, and then you can pour that back into it. That's the best way to be organic. That's what I'm a fan of. That's what I've always done, and that's what I think people should do. That way, it's more sustainable.
Yep, and we're sitting here in the lead up to Christmas 2022. Where are you going to be in the near future?
Not far from here. So Pacific Fair, I'm very excited about Pacific Fair. I've done it there a few times, but I've only had the double egg pods, which is, like I said, it's a bit older technology now. And I'm bringing you this machine that has never been imported to Australia before, ever. So it's brand new technology. It's very cutting edge. It's I'm just excited to see how consumers react. I'm also trying to break through my sort of 12, 13 year barrier into like an older demographic, which I think I can do with this machine. That's a big thing for me to explore and see, and I'm excited about getting to an older demographic.
I can see it in your eyes when you're talking about this new machine that you are genuinely excited about.
It costs a lot of money, so I'm going to be excited about it.
You're excited about making some money with it too, aren't you?
Yeah, getting it back.
Yeah, that'll be fantastic.
Yeah.
So, Triple F is the name of your company. How
Yes.
do people find you on your socials and that kind of stuff as well?
Yeah, so just Google Triple F Virtual Reality. The name of my website is TRIPLE, triple, and then the letter F for Fox.com.au. That's my website, and then you'll see all my socials from there. I'm on Facebook. If you type in Triple F Virtual Reality Facebook, you'll see me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere.
And if somebody wants to hire you to come out and do their event, they can do that there too.
They can do that on the website. They can give me a call, whatever they want to do.
Well, Tim, it's been absolutely brilliant to have you on the My Business Podcast today. Have you enjoyed your time with us?
100%, yeah.
Nice and easy, wasn't too bad. It's
You're
good fun.
You're a good host, Rob.
It's a good fun. So look out for Tim. He'll be at Pacific Fair, obviously, in the next. When do you start there?
12th of December, so 1 week.
So I'm coming out. You know that now. Yeah. I'm going to have to see this in operation. So we'll come out and have a look at that out there.
I'll have to cut you a good deal on the rides.
Excellent. Thank you very much for coming in.
Beautiful.
And look forward to seeing you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tim.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the My Business Podcast, brought to you by Media 8 on the Podfire platform. If you want to be on our podcast, please reach out to the team on all our socials at mybusiness.pod.